Welcome everyone to Our Driven Roads 2021 VW Passat SE, if that means anything to you. I wanted to make this video for a long time because before I came to United States, VW Passat was my dream car. Yes, Passat, I know. But when I say that, I mean the European Passat, which is way different from the American Passat. So today we're going to talk about the differences between the two markets, and also we're going to be talking specifically about the American Passat, which I am in right now. And I'm going to tell you right off that I don't like the American Passat, and I've driven the previous generation, let's see, about 6 years ago, and my first impression was much better than with today's Passat. Alright, let's start with the exterior. I do think that the overall look improved from the previous generation, although it's still not as elegant and sharp as the European Passat. In my perspective, I don't see much of a difference or need to refresh the Passat compared to the previous generation. They would have done just as well, just continuing the existing Passat for another couple of years and then just dropping it completely as they're planning to, because this refresh doesn't really seem to do much, honestly. So overall, yes, it does look a little bit better. You can still recognize classic shapes of a Passat, which is still a pretty large sedan, I would say. Interior wise, well, I do believe that this is the worst part in the Passat, because they managed to destroy all my previous experience with VWs, and by that I mean the Jetta and the Golf. Apparently there is a bottom line between making a premium car look cheap, and this is what VW did here. First of all, you might think that the current Passat is kind of a stretched out Jetta, which is not correct. Jetta, in fact, is actually better. Better from a platform build standpoint because it rides on the same MQB platform as the Golf and the new Tiguan. This Passat still rides on the old platform, which I'm going to talk about more later. Besides that, speaking about the interior, they've kind of used the same stuff you find in Jetta, and I mean the infotainment screen or the center console, the steering wheel, but they got rid of for example, the center analog clock, which was something very specific to the Passat model. Alright, so to open it in extended position, you'll still have to push it back or to reach underneath to do that, which is very annoying and really uncomfortable. The next thing, I don't understand why VW didn't make this hand or elbow rest adjustable in terms of height like they did in Golf, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that's something very complicated, and if they're doing it in other models in their lineup, why not doing that here as well? For some reason, the infotainment system is not as good as it was in Jetta and Golf. I'm having issues connecting to Android Auto. Normally with Android Auto, you just plug in the phone and your Bluetooth will start by itself automatically, and in a matter of seconds your phone is going to be connected. Here it does that maybe other second or third time, or otherwise it'll ask you to confirm on the screen that you want to connect it, which is again annoying and takes time. I will say though that the visibility is really good. There's not much plastic or I don't know enforcement here to block the view, so the visibility is good. Now let's talk about seating. I think seats here are just straight terrible. There's no support whatsoever. If you're in the driving position, you can hold yourself in a turn by holding the wheel or like pushing yourself against the wheel. As a passenger, you're just going to be moving around all the time, and this is one of those cases where although the seats are not cloth, they're kind of leatherette or some synthetic leather, call it the way you want. Because of how flat they are, they feel and look really cheap, and I cannot express that enough. Back seats are even worse. It's just a flat bench. Yes, it's spacious, it's very, very spacious, but it's just flat. The last time I've been in a car with such flat seats, I think it was the Chrysler 300. I've complained about that, but at least that car had a good V6 engine, which it was a counterbalance. Not in this case. So yeah, the seats are bad. They're not going down enough. They go up a lot. I don't know. This is a lot of up movement, I think. And they still go up. Oh crap. My head is reaching the sunroof. And as far as I understand, the R trim, which is one of the 3 trims left with the Passat, doesn't have better seats either. So as you can imagine, there's a bunch of space inside. Even more, the trunk is huge. If you fold down the rear seats, not considering the height or the fact that this is a sedan, the length of the trunk area is very comparable to a Toyota RAV4, for example. Safety features. There are actually safety features. There's the lane keep assist, there's emergency braking, there's full range cruise control and stuff, which helps you eliminate completely the feel out of this car. It's so boring to drive on normal roads without any of those assistant safety features. But when you turn them on, it's just like you want to fall asleep or just take off your pants off the wheel and not do anything or and do nothing. So they are here. They work fairly well, but just like with any other car, I wouldn't rely too much on them. All right, let's move to the engine and transmission. And this is a squeaky part because VW claims that this is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine with a turbo. And it turns out that it makes less power than a Camry. It feels like shit if you drive steadily on a highway or on a street. It feels like at some point it's just gonna stall or just gonna stop. It's just doesn't want to move all that much, and that considering that it's a 2-liter turbo. I don't know. They might be using the smallest turbo they have in the VW lineup or something like that. I don't know. I mean, on paper, there's kind of enough power and torque to move the car, but the next thing is transmission, which seems to be the same transmission that was in the Jetta and the Golf I drove in the past, but for some reason it turns out they tuned it just to get that good gas mileage, and that's about it. The transmission is pretty slow to react, and it's like you can floor the car in normal D mode or drive mode, and for a couple of seconds nothing is gonna happen, and then it's gonna kind of start to move and surge, and it feels like that 1.2-liter turbo I had in the Golf. But that Golf was on the MQB platform, which was at least riding good for the amount of power it had. This one doesn't ride well, and the power is just out. And there's not either an optional DSG for the Passat. It's just one transmission, and they've tuned it to get that 30 miles per gallon rating, which is kind of disappointing. I mean, if you just want a car that has a good gas mileage, just go with a Camry. Don't bother buying a VW, which is supposed to be a kind of a bridge between the regular consumer cars or the low end and then the upper scale. And this is what it was for me until I got into the Passat. The ride quality and balance. Well, the ride quality overall is good. There is nothing you're gonna feel on the road. Sometimes I felt like I wanted to go into a ditch or go off-road or do something to feel any response or input from the road. It's very, very comfortable, I guess. I don't even want to say comfortable because it's just as comfortable as disconnected from the roads. It's very soft. Even more, there's some significant body roll when you enter a turn, more compared to some of the SUVs, which is kind of unbelievable. I would expect that the VW Passat sedan to feel a lot better in turns and so on. It's nice for long roads. If you're looking for a dampened, isolated feeling on road, that's the car to get. Handling and stability, and I think this is where I'm mostly disappointed with the car, because I've been in cars that either had a bad handling and good transmission engine, or a vice versa, a good transmission engine or bad handling. When you have them both in the same car, it just makes a terrible experience. And when I say that, I mean that before I got into this Passat, my worst car I've ever been in was Chevy Malibu. That car doesn't speak to me in any way. It's just so dampened and isolated from anything going on the road. The steering is just dead. You probably hear when people say that the steering feels like in a video game, and that's really what it is. There's absolutely no vibration or any feedback from the road. You're just turning the steering wheel and it kind of moves. It changes direction, but that's it. It just feels very sterile. It just kills the joy of driving, or the desire to do anything with this car. And if at least this car would handle relatively well, I would be fine with how poor the drivetrain performs. But in this case, they both work really bad. So there's kind of no excuses for making the car feel so lame on the road. Again, as I've said before, the Passat, even though it's refreshed or updated, it still rides on the same platform as the previous Passat did, which is not the best thing. The European Passat has been on the MQB platform for 5 years, I think. They released a new Passat the same year they released a new Golf. Expectedly, that car handles a lot better. So after all I said, you can kind of see why I don't particularly like this Passat. And I don't really understand the reasoning behind creating or updating the car that doesn't sell all that well. What's the point? VW released the Arteon, which is a much better looking and supposedly filling car. You can fit a lot more in it. As I said, it looks better. It even comes with 4Motion. I hope they at some point add the DSG option for the Arteon, which would be really nice. But I do not understand why VW refreshed this car. It would be just fine to leave the previous generation or the previous refresh as is. Maybe add like a few, I don't know, final editions like the Subaru does with its STI and WRX. Just make it sell still the way it is, because this car doesn't make any sense at all. It's not a stretched Jetta. Yes, it does have a lot of space, but it's worse than Jetta. Jetta is still pretty roomy. If you want a sedan and it has to be VW, just go with the Jetta. It's much better. It rides a lot better. The seats actually have some support in them, and you will feel a lot more rewarded and confident behind the wheel. It feels a lot more expensive than this Passat, which is kind of unbelievable, but that's what it is. So yeah, there is no real reason for you to buy this car. And it looks like even VW is kind of gave up on Passat, and I mean, they only left 3 trims. I think you have the S, SE, and the R trim, which is, let's be honest, is just a appearance package, and it doesn't really add all that much. If you still want a Passat, just go and buy the previous generation. They are not particularly pricey. They kind of lose a lot in value, and you'll be better off with the previous gen, for example, SEL trims, which is fully packed with anything you need, and so on. So overall, in my opinion, this is not a good car. It's not a good car as a car in general, and it's definitely not a good car as a VW. And if you drive this car with the eyes closed, you're literally gonna think that you're in some sort of cheap Malibu, anything of that level, I don't know, or early Kias or something like that, because it just does not deliver that expected quality and feel from the car operation that normally the VW does. This is where the European Passat makes a lot more sense. It is sharper, it looks a lot better, and supposedly it rides better. Also, of course, available only for Europe is the Passat All-Track, or the station wagon. I mean, this is really as close as you can get to a Audi or BMW level of luxury and quality without overpaying too much. If I would have gone to Europe, I would definitely purchase one of those wagons because Passat is a really roomy car, and if you don't care too much about the height, you'll be rewarded with the amount of space it has inside without the need of buying an SUV. And also in Europe, you have more options when it comes to powertrain. You have the optional DSG, and the 2-liter engine is more powerful. So overall, again, this car doesn't make sense at this point. If they're trying to get rid of it, then why refreshing it? Why continuing producing it? Because, alright, I've shit it enough on this car. One last thing I want to talk about is the brake pedal or brake pedal feel. It has some sort of weird feedback. You kind of press it and it feels like it sticks and it doesn't retract back as fast as normally the other car do. In the 5 days I had the Passat, I got used to it, but it just makes the car even more lame and boring as it is in the beginning. Although today's video was kind of negative, I still hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Wow, I feel better after all the shit I've talked about. Yeah, because I drove to work every day for a week, and you're kind of getting into the same car for 5 days, and you gotta find a way not to hate yourself. So I feel good for pulling all this out. That's gonna be enough.